The year is 1177 BC. The world is not savage, it is sophisticated. In Egypt, the pharaohs rule over an empire of gold and granite. In Greece, the Mycenaeans have built palaces with running water and painted frescoes. In Turkey, the Hittites command armies of thousands of chariots. It is the late Bronze Age, the first true global economy. Kings trade tin from Afghanistan for copper from Cyprus. They exchange letters, marry each other's daughters, and send gifts of ivory and lapis lazuli across the sea. It is a world of order, of laws, of international diplomacy. And then, in the blink of an eye, the lights go out. Within a span of just 40 years, almost every major city in the known world is burned to the ground. Empires that had stood for centuries simply vanish. The trade routes go silent. Writing disappears. Art stops. For the next 300 years, humanity plunges into a dark age so deep that even the memory of how to build a palace is lost. Who killed the Bronze Age? For centuries, historians pointed to a mysterious group of invaders, a phantom navy that appeared out of the mist, destroyed everything in its path, and then disappeared into history. The Egyptians called them the Sea Peoples. But was it really an invasion? Or was it something far more terrifying? Something that looks suspiciously like the world we live in today? If you've ever felt that civilization is fragile, that the systems we rely on could snap like a dry twig, you are in the right place. Here on AG Chronicle, we study the ruins to find the warnings. Every subscription, every like, helps us piece together the puzzle of the past. Now let's go back to the Mediterranean coast, because the horizon is filling with sails and the end of the world has arrived. To understand the horror of the collapse, you have to read the Mail. In the city of Ugarit, a wealthy trading hub on the coast of modern-day Syria, archaeologists found a clay tablet. It was found in a kiln, the oven used to bake the clay. It was never sent. It was written by the king of Ugarit to a neighboring king. It reads, "My father, behold, the enemy ships came here. My cities were burned and they did evil things in my country. Does not my father know that all my troops and chariots are in the land of Hatti, and all my ships are in the land of Luca? Thus the country is abandoned to itself." He ends with a scream etched in clay. The enemy's ships are here. It is death. That tablet was baking in the fire when the city was sacked. The people who wrote it were slaughtered before they could take it out of the oven. Ugarit was leveled. It was never inhabited again. And it wasn't just Ugarit Hattusa, the capital of the Hittite Empire. Mycenaean Greece, Troy, Gaza, Ashkelon. Archaeologists have found a destruction layer at these sites, a band of ash and charred debris several feet thick, arrowheads buried in the walls, skeletons left in the streets. The violence was total, but who were the attackers? The only clear picture we have comes from the last man standing, Ramesses III, Pharaoh of Egypt. In 1177 BC, the invaders reached the Nile Delta. Ramesses stopped them. To celebrate his victory, he carved a massive relief on the walls of his temple at Medinet Habu. He describes a confederation of tribes, the Peliset, the Cheker, the Shekelesh, the Dena'in, and the Weshesh, the Sea Peoples. He depicts them not just as warriors, but as a migration. The carvings show ox carts carrying women and children. These weren't just raiders looking for gold. They were refugees looking for a home. For decades, this was the answer. The Sea Peoples were a barbarian horde, like the Vikings, who smashed civilization. But does that make sense? Could a ragtag fleet of refugees really destroy the Hittite Empire, the Mycenaeans, and the Canaanites all at once? These were superpowers with professional armies and thousands of chariots. It would be like a fleet of pirate ships taking down the US Navy. The math doesn't add up, and that is where the real detective work begins. If you believe that simple answers are usually wrong, hit that subscribe button, because the truth is a lot more complicated. Modern science has given us a new clue, and it didn't come from a shovel, it came from pollen. By analyzing ancient pollen grains from the bottom of lakes in the region, scientists discovered something terrifying. Right around 1200 BC, the climate shifted drastically. A mega-drought hit the Mediterranean. It lasted for decades. Imagine the domino effect. The rains fail, the crops die, The surplus food runs out. In a globalized economy, when one piece falls, the whole system shakes. The Hittites cry out for grain from Egypt. The trade routes are disrupted. Famine sets in. And when people starve, they move. The sea peoples likely weren't the villains. They were the victims. They were the people of Sicily, Sardinia, and the Aegean, fleeing their own starving lands. They weren't invading to conquer. They were invading to eat. But there is more. Archaeologists also found evidence of an earthquake storm, a series of massive seismic events that rocked the region over a 50-year period. So picture the scene. You are a king in 1177 BC. Your crops have failed for 10 years. Your people are starving. An earthquake shatters your city walls. And then, on the horizon, you see 1,000 ships filled with desperate armed men who have nothing left to lose. It wasn't one thing that killed the Bronze Age. It was everything at once. Climate change, famine, earthquakes, migration, war. It was a systems collapse. The civilization was too complex, too interconnected. When the copper stopped coming, the bronze couldn't be made. When the grain stopped arriving, the armies couldn't be fed. The great kings didn't fall because they were weak. They fell because they were too specialized to survive the chaos. The collapse was total. When the dust settled, the map was blank. The Hittites were gone. The Mycenaeans were forgotten. Egypt was a shadow of itself, never to be a great empire again. Writing vanished from Greece for centuries. The stories of that golden age were passed down only by oral tradition, eventually becoming the myths of the Trojan War and the Odyssey. But from the ashes, something new emerged. With the trade routes broken, people couldn't get tin to make bronze. So they were forced to experiment with a different metal. A metal that was harder to work with, but available everywhere: iron. The Bronze Age collapse forced humanity to innovate. It gave birth to the Iron Age. It cleared the board for new, smaller powers to rise. The Phoenicians, the Israelites, and eventually the city-states of Athens and Sparta destruction paved the way for creation. So why does this story matter today? Because we live in 1177 BC. We live in a world of complex, interconnected supply chains. We rely on grain from one continent and chips from another. We face a changing climate and mass migration. The people of the Bronze Age thought their world was permanent. They thought their walls were high enough. They were wrong. Civilization is not a guarantee. It is a fragile agreement that can be broken by a drought, a war, or a fleet of ships on the horizon. The ruins of Ugarit are still there, baking in the sun. A warning from the ghosts of the past. Thank you for watching AG Chronicle. If you want to learn the lessons that history tried to teach us, subscribe. Because the past isn't just a story, it's a mirror.